This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Welcome, everybody. This is A Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host, and this is our first recorded video podcast. Isn't that fantastic? And today, Mara Carpel is so generous to come here and share with us all her expertise and knowledge. She is a psychologist. She's an expert on ageism. She is the international bestseller of The Passionate Life. Sorry, I was changing your book name. She also hosts a podcast. She is wonderful, and I'm so delighted to have you here. Welcome, Mara.
Thank you so much, Isabel. And I'm excited. I didn't know I was on your first video podcast, so this is exciting. Thank you so much for having me.
I tested it with myself, but I hadn't tested it with other people, so
okay. Well, it's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited about doing this and see what happens. So I know you're about to launch a book. So tell us a little bit more about that book, what prompted you to write that book, all of the things.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm a psychologist. I specialize in working with older adults and caregivers. I also do some work with veterans as well, but my focus recently has been on helping caregivers in navigating an ageist healthcare system, because after my many years of working in nursing homes and specializing in geriatrics in graduate school, I ended up many years later to be I wouldn't say caregiver, but the advocate for my mom when she was in her 80s and 90s. And she ended up was in the hospital for a whole month with a doctor who really was not very helpful. He did not want to treat her, even though she had a treatable condition, and kept pushing us to put her into hospice when she wasn't dying and she really wanted to live. She was 91, and he had made that decision based on her age, not really based on her ability to handle treatment, which really was not an invasive treatment. It was just an increase of diuretic to get the fluid out of her lungs. That was basically what she was there for. And I had to really fight along with my brother to get the treatment. We actually went around that doctor and went directly to the cardiologist and told him that she wanted treatment and what was the downside of it. If the doctor's saying she's going to die anyway, why not try it? She wanted to try it. She was very cognitively aware and knew what she wanted. And he went ahead and treated her, and after those 3 weeks of not getting that treatment, they started that treatment. She left the hospital 5 days later. Her lungs were clear, and she moved into a nursing home at that point because she had lost her ability to walk while she was in the hospital because they wouldn't get her out of bed to keep her legs strong. So she lived in a nursing home. She was in a very nice nursing home, I must say, and the nicest I've ever seen in all of the years of my work. But it was a nursing home. And after having been through what we had been through, I became the primary advocate at that point. I asked my brother, who lived close by, to let me do it. And I stayed on top of it, started a family council, I put a camera in her room. I was constantly watching everything that was happening, and I had to really be on top of it. And she lived a very happy life. She never had the fluid in her lungs again. She remained medically stable for 2 years. And when she passed away in 2023, it was not because of congestive heart failure, which caused the fluid in her lungs. So she never had another flare-up of that, as contrary to what the doctor had told us, that it would be 7 days and she'd be dead if we took her out of the hospital. So at that point, I decided that I really wanted to be the advocate supporter. After I had been an advocate for my mom, and I wanted to be the person who could support the advocate, the family member, the way that I wished that I had had. Somebody who would believe me, somebody who would direct me rather than myself. I had to learn on the ground who to go to, who were my allies, all of that kind of thing. So I started writing about that. I'm working on a book on navigating the ageist healthcare system. I'm hoping that's out in 2026. And in the middle of all of this, I was invited to one of the authors in a collaborative book called The Caregiver's Advocate, Volume 2. So there was I don't have a copy of that because at this time that we're taping, it has not launched yet. It's launching on August 19th. This is the first volume. I wasn't in this one, but this is the title, but I'm in Volume 2, and that's launching on August 19th. And I wrote a chapter, told that story in more detail in that chapter, and then gave a tool for family members about how to communicate with staff, both in hospitals, in the doctor's office, and in nursing homes. So that is that book. That's launching. By the time this is out and people see this, it will have launched, and it will be available on Amazon in softcover and in Kindle in an ebook.
That's so exciting. I'm really excited because I don't think enough people are talking about ageism. They might be talking about it in the workforce. So people of certain age are getting removed from their job positions and being pushed into retirement. But other than that, we are not conscious that that stigma follow us through life. I was just recently, a couple of days ago, I was talking with my high school friends. We had a very amazing conversation. We were on the phone for 5 hours.
Wow.
Way into the early morning. And one of my friends was mentioning that by 2035, so 10 years from now, technology is going to be so advanced that we're gonna be able to freeze our faces the way they are, like whatever. Like I could be able to freeze my face this way and look this way until I die.
Wow.
And for me, in particular, I was like, okay, that is cool. I find that is impressive. But also, we will stop giving value to elder people because we need to look young. And we're still aging.
Yeah, and that's really the way it is right now, right? We compliment people because they look young, or we look at that 90-year-old who's doing yoga and standing on their head, and we're just amazed with them, which is, it's great that if I can stand on my head at 90, I'd be really happy, but that doesn't mean that those 90-year-olds who are not capable of doing that and who are looking like 90 years old should be considered any less valuable.
So why do you think this is? I would like to understand what is causing this problem.
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I think we have to go into like the whole sociology of our culture. You know, we've moved away from a culture where we took care of our elders and we really looked up to them, right? And certain cultures around the world still do that. They don't have nursing homes because people take them into their own home and they take care of them. But in our society, we've become much more focused on, you know, success and having highly successful jobs and moving around the country. And I moved around the country. I left my home in New York. I moved to Texas. Now I'm in North Carolina. And left my family back in New York. My parents were already aging. And that's like common. And we've put a lot of value in success in the workplace and really moving up the ladder and making money. Money is like the primary, at this point, it's what we value most in this society. And at some point, you know, you get to the point where you retire, you're not bringing in the money, you're not able to do the things that you used to be able to do. And so those people who are either older or disabled or not capable of being able to move up the ladder anymore, they're devalued. And I think a lot of it is profit driven at this point. Certainly in healthcare. I received my doctorate in 1992. And I started working in a healthcare facility. It was partly a nursing home and partly pain and brain injury. So nobody wanted to work in the nursing home. So they hired me because I said I had a specialty in geriatrics, and I went into the nursing home. And then I moved, that was in Syracuse where I got my doctorate, and I moved to New York City, and I worked in very large nursing homes around the New York City area. And I saw a lot of ageism at that point where people were, you know, put away in these homes and not treated well, but it was better than it had been. So I heard from the 70s when it first started, nursing homes first started in the 70s, where people were warehoused and just kind of put into these homes so their families could do whatever they want to do and live a wonderful life and not have to worry about their elderly family.
Completely about this person.
And I saw a lot of ageism where doctors were saying, I won't write an order for you to do psychotherapy with somebody in their 80s because what's the point?
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a doctor literally say to me, there is no point, they're going to die soon anyway. I had another doctor who the nursing staff really, really wanted this person to be seen for their depression because the medication was not working. And we had a few sessions and she started feeling better because really she wanted to talk, and she wanted to talk about what was making her feel depressed. And she started feeling better just from talking. And it was obvious. And so I ran into that doctor at the nursing station, and he said to me, wow, you know, Mrs. X is doing so much better. I guess talking about her toilet training when she was a child is really helping her.
So rude.
So rude. And I couldn't say anything because Medicare requires that the doctor signs an order when somebody's in a nursing home for me to be able to see them. So I had to keep my mouth shut or I wouldn't get any other orders. But it started improving over time. I started seeing the medical staff, seeing the value in psychotherapy, and people were feeling better. I had a woman who had chronic pain, and her pain was getting better because it was mostly psychological. She was depressed, so she was in pain. I saw another woman who wasn't very old, but I think she was in her 60s. I'm in my 60s, so that's not old. But she had a lot of pain and they couldn't explain it. And when I talked to her, I realized that she was in trauma because she had been in a coma. And nobody ever talked to her about the trauma of having been in a coma. So we did a little bit of trauma work, just one session. and her pain went away. So that doctor accused me of giving her medication when I don't have a license to give medication. I don't give that. He said, you can't give any medication. You're not a medical doctor. You're a PhD. And I said, I didn't give any medication. I talked to her. Nobody asked her how she felt having been in a coma. So I saw, I'm getting a little off the topic, but I saw some improvement. And then I kind of got away myself from working in nursing homes. And after I moved to Texas, I started doing work in assisted living. And then I had a private practice. And it wasn't until my own mother ended up in a nursing home that I was back in that situation. And I saw that rather than things getting better, which I had seen, they were getting better, they had gotten worse in terms of the attitude toward people who are aging. The doctors wanting to push people into hospice because they didn't want to treat them. And I realized, I did investigation on this when my own mother was in that situation. And I discovered that hospice had changed. So when hospice first started, it was a really good thing. It was for people who were imminently dying, and it was to help them to die with dignity and to comfortable. If treatment didn't work and they didn't want it anymore, to not have to be poked and prodded. But that was when it was nonprofit. When it became profit-driven, these are now privately owned hospices, I would say about 70% of them now are profit-driven. Mm-hmm. They started really pushing hospice. And the nursing homes discovered that it saved them a lot of money to have hospice come in and bring in their own people to take care of them. Hospitals, even where my mom was, they like hospice because if there's a chance that the person might die, which can happen. I mean, there was no guarantee that the treatment was going to work for my mom. So she could have died in the hospital. That's a mark against the hospital.
Yep.
So if they go to hospice, well, they're supposed to die in hospice. So there's no mark against them. In fact, it's a mark against them, even though the hospice sells it as we take good care of them, your family member might graduate and do better, and then they won't need hospice anymore because of all the excellent care we give them, which they make a lot of promises that they often don't keep. My mom would not have gotten that treatment she needed if she went to hospice. But in fact, if people don't die in hospice within a certain amount of time, it's a mark against the hospice. Because Medicare will start coming and looking and saying you're accepting people that are not appropriate. They weren't really dying. So,
and probably this is not a question for you, but do you either graduate people from hospice or help them die faster?
That's a very good question, and very controversial for me to say this, but I have met a lot of people who their family member was not dying and they were suddenly lethargic and not wanting to eat, and the hospice wasn't feeding them, and they would tell them that they're dying when in fact they were given very sedating medication and they died. So yes, I do think that I'll probably get a lot of pushback for this, but I have heard this in many cases where people were helped to die faster when they weren't really dying. Yeah, you have to follow the money. So I do recommend, this is not by me, there is a film that just launched on Amazon. I'm in it for a minute and a half telling my mom's story, but it's a 3-part series on Amazon Prime that just launched August 1st. It's called No Country for Old People, and that was created by Susie Singer Carter, and she partnered with Rick Moncastle, who is the former Attorney General that is portrayed in the movie Dope Stick, because he was very active in uncovering what was behind the opiate addiction issue. And it's all about Susie Singer Carter's mother was in one of the best nursing homes, supposedly, and she feels that her mom was pushed to die and not treated very well. So she did a whole expose. She did a lot of research on it. So I do recommend it. I'm in the second episode of the 3-part series. So I tell a little bit more detail about what happened with my mom, which I also write about in that book, in that chapter, because that's how the chapters are structured, that we tell our story and then we give a tool.
Yeah.
But I think part of the issue is, as I mentioned, it's the profit motive, both of nursing homes and hospice, as well as just the medical field in general has become profit driven. Even for me, I discovered that I was almost scammed and paying 3 times the amount that it costs for an ultrasound, a simple ultrasound, because I chose to go to an imaging center that was attached to a hospital. Just didn't know. I just moved. So I just found an imaging center and found out they were charging me for not just the ultrasound, but for a hospital visit, even though I wasn't going to the hospital, and for the radiologist to read it, which if you go to a standalone imaging center, they just charge you for the ultrasound, which is a third of the price. So healthcare has become very profit driven in general, and older people are looked at as a drain on the system. Yes. So they're not valued, and they're treated like they're just, we have to get rid of you because you're draining our money. If you're that 90-year-old who's standing on their head and taking care of themselves, wonderful. We're happy for you because you're not costing us any money. But if you're in the medical system, you're draining us, and they don't, they're not interested in keeping you going. Part of it is also, sorry to interrupt you, part of it is also us. We all have that ageist, like you mentioned, your friends talked about, we want to freeze our face so that we look young.
Yeah. In
our very youth-focused culture. Mm-hmm. We're not looked at as more valuable as we age, when really we gain more wisdom the older we get. I mean, I'm 63, and I think that I know quite a bit more than I did when I was 33.
Of course, you gain experiences, and I think people have the same value over time. It's not like you lose or gain value depending on your age. I do think that what we provide to society is different as we age. Mm-hmm. So when we're kids, when we're babies, young people, we're consuming content, we're learning the world, we're acquiring knowledge of how things work one way or another. And then we become productive. We create solutions to problems that we don't even know they exist. And so we're creating, and then we provide wisdom. Mm-hmm. Then we coach these younger people with all the knowledge that we acquired throughout our lives.
Absolutely. I think people who live and totally surround themselves with younger people all the time are missing out on the wisdom and the expertise of older people. I think, and that was what really kind of inspired me to go into specializing in geriatrics when I was just in my 20s. I was in my 20s in graduate school, and I decided, when everybody was deciding what's going to be your specialty, I said, I want to do geriatrics because I had a grandmother who I really loved sitting and talking to. I was around older people quite a bit. My parents were not young parents. I was the last of 3 kids, and I came much later. My parents were a little bit older, and I felt Like there was so much richness in their history and their expertise. And when, going into nursing homes and people would talk about their experiences in life, it didn't feel like work to me. Because I was so interested and so much enjoyed hearing about their lives. In fact, that's what inspired me to write this book, The Passionate Life, Creating Vitality and Joy at Any Age, because I found that there were people in nursing homes, in assisted living, even in independent living, who were quite elderly, in their 90s. I saw some people in their early hundreds. Mm-hmm. And I found that those people who were really passionate about something in their life were the people who were more resilient and had less tendency to become depressed. Mm-hmm. So I think that even someone in a nursing home, somebody who's severely disabled, can actually have something in their life that's meaningful that can help them to not be depressed, even if it's just being generous and kind to their fellow nursing home residents or the staff.
Yeah.
Walking into the nursing home, if one of the residents smiled at me and said, "How are you doing today? It's so good to see you," I felt good. Mm-hmm. So they were actually giving me something. They were making my day feel good, and they felt good because they knew that.
Yeah. So what are some ways in which people can identify ageism?
Well, in the medical system, if a doctor says, well, at your age or at your mom's age, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to do any treatment, that kind of thing. That's a sign of ageism, actually. Because a medical decision should not be based on age, because there is so much diversity in someone's ability to handle treatment and how they're going to respond, how they're going to recover within one age group. So you can't base a medical decision based on age. You have to base it on that specific person's medical condition and their ability to handle treatment based on their history. So that's one sign. If someone is in a nursing home and they're just kind of pushed to the side, as I said, my mom was in a good nursing home. She had a lot of really good caregivers, but there were people who filled in who were not so good. And there were times where my mom's request was that between meals, she couldn't walk by herself. She couldn't ambulate by herself. She had to be wheeled to her room. And her request was to go back to her room so she could watch her TV, talk on the telephone, have her cup of water next to her. She had a whole routine. And sometimes she would be left at the table between lunch and dinner.
Oh.
Or left at the table at dinner until 9 o'clock at night when they went to get her ready for bed. And when I called and said, "Hey, why is my mom still at the dining room table?" "Well, she doesn't go to bed yet." "Okay, but you left her sitting at a table by herself, staring at a wall, where there's nobody around her. When she was yelling out because her speech was impaired from a mild stroke, they just assumed she has dementia. So they just ignored her. Well, my mom didn't have dementia. She was yelling out because she wanted to go back to her room. And even if someone has dementia, you don't treat them that way."
Yeah.
So that kind of, just treating people like things, like objects, rather than human beings with the same feelings as you and I, because they're older, that's ageism. Assuming someone has dementia because they might have a speech impairment, that's ageism. There's a view that, they must be demented because they're in their 90s. No, not every older person has dementia. So those are some of the...
So where can people find you to learn more about dementia and how to fight against it?
About ageism? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a website, drmarakarpel.com. So it's drmarakarpel.com. And I'm going to be starting coaching in September.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Perfect timing.
Yes. And I'm also going to have an online course soon after. So people can go to my website, and at the website they can sign up to have a free consultation to see if my coaching is right for you. They can find out about my course that will hopefully, by the time this airs, there'll be information about that. They can find out about my podcast, which we are restarting. We stopped for a while, and we're restarting very soon. And hopefully you'll be on it.
Thank you. I would love that.
And also there are 11 years worth of weekly podcasts that are available to listen to because we started the podcast in 2014.
Before they were a thing.
Yes. You'll also be able to find this book, information about that, as well as the new book, link to that. And I have a free chapter that people can download from The Passionate Life. They can go to my website and download that. And there's also going to be a free PDF that they can download, which is Living a Passionate Life as a Caregiver.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's the main place. My website. Also, I have a Facebook page, Dr. Mara Karpel, Your Golden Years, which is the name of my podcast. And I'm on Instagram, Mara Karpel. I'm on LinkedIn, Mara Karpel. And I just started a Substack. And I'm on Medium.
Everywhere. You can find Mara everywhere. So
everywhere.
Go ahead, search whatever fits you best because she definitely has tons of options. And well, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you.